Hello, podcast listeners, and welcome to the Core Health Collective Show. My name is Ben Bowen, and on this podcast, we will be exploring what it means to be an entrepreneur in the health and wellness industry. We will explore the many opportunities and challenges we go through to improve the human condition with the products and services we sell. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Core Health Collective Show. I've got a fabulous guest on with us today who is also an old friend, who is also responsible for many iterations of my own personal fitness. So I'd like to welcome Bob Payne, the founder and owner of Limestone Athletics, to today's show. Welcome, Bob.
Hey, Ben, thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining. This is, we've been talking about this for years, whether it's your podcast or my podcast, but, I'm glad we finally got this done. Or we're getting it done today anyway. So for those of you that don't know Bob, he started Limestone Athletics. I'll let you get into the story because it's not even just Limestone Athletics through your journey. But anyways, the gym and the programming there just turned 10, which in the fitness gym world is a huge accomplishment. So I first off want to really say congratulations.
Awesome. No, thanks, Ben. That's awesome. I'm still getting over the 10-year anniversary. Like I was saying on that day, was some days it's felt like it's been a couple of years. Other days it's like, oh wow, like it's only been 10 years. It's felt like 20 years, so.
Yeah. So our audience will really appreciate that statement because again, we cater to entrepreneurs in the health and wellness field. So, the typical guest on this show starts a business because they have a passion to make people healthier. And then over the course of that journey, they realize that the business side of it and some of the other things that maybe they didn't expect are can be tough. So I'm glad that you're here sharing your story. So why don't we cycle back? Maybe not to when Bob first took his first step into his mother's arms down the hallway. Let's maybe start at the beginning of your fitness entrepreneur journey. Why don't we go there and then bring us to present day?
Okay, I won't tell you about the first time I rode a bike and how athletic it was. No.
We all know you're an athlete, Bob.
Yeah, no. I've always told myself that. So kind of jump right into it. I've always been involved in like sports and all that, right? And always going to the gym. Always like, I would say a meathead, but like not like the typical meathead you see like on social media, like the big bodybuilders. But I was always like loving sports, loving going to the gym. What would have been probably like 2011, maybe something like that, 2010. One of my buddies, classic way of people getting into CrossFit. He was like, "Hey, why don't you come join me for a workout?" And so basically the way that happened was like growing up, he's one of my best friends growing up. He was always the academic one. So I'm always like looking off, trying to see his answers in the math class. And then in sports, I was always the athletic one. That's how I always said, even though sometimes he would beat me in sports, I never liked that. And so he was
like, going to have to send him this episode. He'll appreciate this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So he was in the military at the time. And so he was like, "Hey, why don't we come do a workout together?" So we went down to the gym on the base there, ended up taking me through one of the classic CrossFit workouts. And so for anybody who doesn't know much about CrossFit, it's just one of the standard ones, especially in the beginning days of before it got really popular, what to do. Like it was all based off this website, CrossFit.com. So he took me through the workout. He basically was kind of like a race. Who could do it faster, right? And he beat me, destroyed me. I didn't like that. So next day he calls me out. He's like, "Hey, let's do another one. This one's going to be a little bit different." And he was trying to pick workouts that he would know that I wouldn't be able to keep up in. And so he was cherry picking. On the second one, I was able to get him. I was able to do a little bit better than him. Like there's something called muscle ups. He was like, "Yeah, I've been working on this movement for like 6 months." He jumps up, shows me. I was able to do it first try. And like he started like, what? And so reason why I'm telling that story is not like telling how great I am or anything like that, but it's more like, man, this is pretty cool. Like this is all different stuff I'd never seen before. And some of the stuff I was not good at. And so I was like, okay, I want to become really good at this stuff. So it became my obsession. So that's how I got into CrossFit. Then I moved down to Mexico, was teaching down there. During the summer, we were still required to go into work every day. like in the just like I was teaching at a university, and so during the summer months, we still had to go into work 8 hours a day with no classes. And so you're kind of like, okay, what do I do with my time? Now the internet was so slow down there. This is before I think YouTube was just starting to become a main thing. And so what to kind of pass the time, I just went onto the CrossFit.com website. They had something called the Journal, where it's basically just articles people in the fitness industry are writing, where you can kind of learn teaching, movement mechanics, anatomy, everything was in there. And so basically kind of kill time, just kept going to the website, downloading articles. And then over time, I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. Like, screw this teaching thing and all that. I was like, I want to go back and open up a CrossFit gym. And if you think about it, really, CrossFit coaching is teaching too. It's all the same,
Absolutely.
Characteristics, right? And so I decided to move back to Kingston. I was like, Dad, I'm going to start a CrossFit gym. He was like, amazing. Whatever gets me moving back to Canada. He didn't care what, but he was like, come back home. Let's do it. We'll support you. And so after about working for maybe 8 months, 12, maybe close to a year, I started coaching. Like, I started my own little private business it wasn't CrossFit yet. Basically where I was running like these classes. It was out of my brother's place. My brother Pete Payne, who was on this podcast too, of the Live Well, and like a little yoga studio. And I think I started off I think one day just randomly got 4 clients through Pete, because he was like, he directed me into like, hey, Bob's going to be running these little classes. So I started doing classes like that. Then over time was able to build up a couple more members, like clients. After that, started getting a couple more, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to buy the CrossFit affiliate. Now, at the time when I was at this spot, like I said, it was a yoga studio. So one thing CrossFit's infamous for, especially in the old days, back when it was like the hardcore garage gym, you got the death metal music going, dropping weights loud, shirts off, grunting, and all that, like a lot of all that. And we were the complete opposite, just because we're working on a yoga studio. And like, the way I had to structure the schedule was, right beside us was where they had massage therapy. So the massage room was right beside us. Now, we can't be dropping weights in there, first of all, but we also can't be making a lot of noise when someone's like on the other side of a drywall getting massaged. So so I basically had to set up the schedule to before and after. So it was like 6 a.m. I ran a class. Then at 6 p.m. I ran another class, right? Max we could do in that gym was 6 people. And so at the time, what we will do is like a lot of CrossFit involves a lot of movement and stuff, like a lot of moving around, like moving parts and stuff. So what we would do is actually take our equipment, we'll go in the parking lot. We started doing it in the parking lot too, and then we'll bring stuff back in. A lot of marks happen on the wall as we're going out the door because people carrying barbells, boxes, like all the dumbbells and stuff like that, just because people are moving, we put a lot of marks. And we're doing workouts in the parking lot. Obviously, the parking lot wasn't flat because there is a grade to it. And like during the classes, sometimes I'll be like chasing after barbells as they're rolling across the parking lot. We keep finding little pebbles in the parking lot to stop them from rolling. Like, looking back at it now, it was a gong show. There's no other way.
I never heard this story before. I love it.
Yeah. And like, we had to do something called wall balls. If anybody doesn't know what wall ball is, you have medicine ball, you squat down, you have to throw it up against the wall, but it's not right in front of you. You have to put it up about, say, 9 or 10 feet above you, right? So there's some height to it. So we couldn't do that, obviously, inside because, again, we're in a yoga studio. The ceiling's only about 8 feet. So we had to go onto the other side of the building, which is right beside the dumpsters. Now, this is downtown Kingston, if anybody's not in Kingston. Like, basically, it was at the Live Well. It's known for some sketchy people going by at weird hours, especially in the morning and things like that. Like, they're coming off their night trip, I'll say that. So there were some sketchy people going by. And so we'll be doing these things. They'll be walking by and they'll be throwing some chirps in there. And these guys were homeless. Some were missing teeth. And I'll be like, okay, keep walking there. So that's what I mean. It was very, at the time, it was gong show. Almost looking back at it, I was like, I don't know how people were signing up to do this at the time. But it's what started it. It's kind of set my patience. And what I mean by that is that we can only do so many classes, right? And so I had to figure out ways to kind of run multiple classes, like at 6 a.m., 7 p.m. at night, and even on Saturday mornings at like 7 a.m. trying to do classes fine all these times. And finally got to a point that we couldn't fit any more people in the classes because our capacity is 6. And we couldn't fit any more classes in there. Met someone who was coming to the gym her name's Kira, who decided I don't even know how we started talking. She's like, look, I know you want to expand. I want a little side project. Let's jump into business together. I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. We've only known each other for about a month, but hey, let's caution to the wind. Let's go. Right.
Yeah.
And so we signed the agreements, did all that stuff. And I think we were officially a CrossFit affiliate at this point for only about 6 months. Right. And this is when CrossFit started to take off. Another CrossFit gym just opened in like downtown Kingston, and this gym where I'm working, like where we're running out, is right downtown Kingston too. So there's that element of competition and in my experience in running a business, ego, like insecurities was getting to me too. So we decided, so we ended up finding a new spot, which was like at our current location. I had to go through all the lawyers, leaseholds and all that stuff. Obviously, they're like, yeah, we can get you moving to this spot. And within like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, we just need to do some renos and all that. We're like, perfect, let's do it. Obviously, it never works out that way. Never works out that way, right? Like anyone's like, yeah, I'm going to be opening up. And they're like, I'm going to be opening up in like, what's today? February 15th, 16th?
16th, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be opening up on March 1st. And then like it'll be end of April. They're like, no, not yet. Nothing's happening yet, right? It's like every business. And so obviously we were running to the issue that we couldn't take more clients in. So we're kind of in a little bit of a bind here. So the landlord at the time that we were dealing with, more like the site manager, he was like, look, we have an empty warehouse space right beside your location, part of the same building. You can move into there. We're like, okay, perfect. Let's move into there. Let's do that. He's like, you don't have to pay rent, but you just have to pay utilities. We're like, okay, perfect. And he's like, now the one thing is it's about 15,000 square feet that you'd be going in there. So it's like to turn on the heat, you're heating up the whole my whole unit. At the time, we were like, we didn't even have enough money. Well, we had money coming in, but like since we're trying to buy new equipment, moving, because that costs money, from not just like buy more barbells and stuff, but we have to get the matting, to like the lawyer fees and things like that, leaseholds, like there's a lot more that goes behind the scenes versus, hey, I'm just going to move here. It's always like way more expensive, right? And those are one of the learning curves that I learned that very hardly there. So he was like, so we moved to that spot. We didn't want to turn the heat on. Obviously this is about October, November, right around then. Of course, that year, it was an absolute freak year for winter. -20 every day. I think we were getting snowstorms like every like 5th day. Like there was like schools were like shut, like downtown Kingston, I think at one point even shut down just because of there's so much snow. It was that year. So of course everything. So the gym was freezing, and because it was like old warehouse, they hadn't been doing maintenance. There's still some holes in the wall where the bay doors are. So snow is actually blowing inside while I'm running classes, and it's like my
This is amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know this part either. I think I showed up just after all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. And like, I think at the time, I remember first day we go in there, I was like, it's absolutely freezing. So we bought little space heaters, and I would like line up the barbells and put them in front of the space heater. So I was getting to the gym, like, let's say the first class at 6 a.m. I was getting there at like 5:20, 5:30 just to start heating up the barbells, because the barbells were so cold in people's hands. Like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. So we started doing that. I remember the first class we ran, I was like, okay, guys, you can start officially dropping weights. I remember everyone's in there. They're so excited. They're literally, I think at one point, like I saw one guy take a barbell and he like threw it down, like just because he's so excited he can drop it, because it was part of the CrossFit thing back then, right? Drop weights, ego, loud music. And at the time I was like, this is amazing. We're dropping weights, because to me, like at that time, I thought that was part of CrossFit. Looking back at it, I think that was it's completely wrong. And I wish I never set that standard up, drop weights, go nuts, right? And that's a whole nother story. But but anyway, so we started doing that. So we couldn't turn on the heat. Eventually we got moved into the next spot. We got into there. Right beside us is a barber shop. And so when we were doing like the negotiations, I said to our landlord, I was like, look, we are going to be making some noise, heads up on us. He was like, yeah, there's no problem. This is actual warehouse. Like, weights can be dropped, all this. He didn't know much about CrossFit. So I was like, look, I want to test this out. We're going to get some barbells. We're going to drop it. This is going to be the sound and the vibrations. He's like, okay. So we did it. He's like, yeah, that passed. That's no problem. Issue was I never got that in writing that he said that's no problem, right? I think within a week, the barbershop right beside us, they came over. They're like, you guys need to stop this. Like the dropping of the weights. Everyone thought it's the music. No, it's the dropping. It's the vibrations, right? Um,
Interesting.
and any engineer would know, like if you drop something right beside you, like heavy, like you feel a little bit further away. Like just think like earthquakes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so like they're in the barbershop, the guy's cutting around someone's ear and like pictures are falling off the wall, right? That's not good for his business, right?
Yeah.
And and so what the landlord's like, you guys need to fix this or you guys gotta get out. So we're like, crap, okay, we can do this. So we tried different things. Even at one point, we even tried getting 3 layers of carpet, like thick carpet, and we put it underneath our mats because we have like these 3/4 inch mats, rubber mats, like horse stall mats. So we take all that, we put 3 layers underneath there. And so we had to restructure the whole inside of the gym to line up like these platforms where you stand on the platforms and you drop the barbell. And so the weights land on the carpet sides, right? And so I remember like this put me like in a depression because at that time when I was like, we're opening a CrossFit out of passion, super excited. I have all these ideas of this is what's going to be and like we're going to be the best community and like all these other things. I never once really thought about business back at that day. Like the business part of like, hey, let's do this. This is like behind the scenes, but I was more just caught up in the passion of like, I want to make everyone's life better and like super excited and the best coaching ever and the best programming, right?
Yeah. That moment in time for you is like so common across the board for all the entrepreneurs I've talked to. That like, the health and wellness, like delivering the service or the product that makes people better is like the passion, and all the other stuff gets in the way.
Exactly. And like looking back at it now, it's like, oh my God, like I'm an idiot. And that's why when other people are like, I want to open up a business, I'm like, these are the things you have to think about because I learned the hard way, right? You just don't think. You're just so excited. You're almost blinded by this passion, right? And so when these other things start happening, like they're hard to take in because it's getting in the way of your passion. Like you're like, yeah, this is my business plan. Well, looking back at it, having a lot of passion to run a business is not a good business plan, right? If that makes sense. Like I had ideas that I written down, like probably on some cocktail napkins at a bar one night. That like, hey, this is my idea, but like, and so basically that did not work with the dropping the onto the mats, the carpet. And he's like, nope. So he's like, either you stop this or you guys are being kicked out. We're like, oh my God, like we're only like not even 4 months into like a 3-year lease at the time, right? We're like, man, like how is this? And we were looking for other spots. There's nowhere else. There's nothing else. And after moving there, because it cost a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of money coming in because we're building. All of a sudden we went from like running 4 classes a day. All of a sudden we're like running like 6, 7 utility bills. Cause like when I was doing it on my brother's place, like he gave me a great deal. He's like, just pay for the cost of that room that you're using, right? Not like he wasn't trying to make a profit off or anything like that. And so, and like we had to buy a whole bunch of new equipment to go from a 400 square foot to about 2,600, right? So you have to buy more stuff. So the budget was tight. So, and basically the landlord gave us that ultimatum there. But the people beside us on the other side, so the barbershop's on the right side, there's like a marketing people business on the other side that I think you and I have talked about them in the past because they helped us in the beginning because they made us some free signs and stuff like that. They were switching locations. So they're like, awesome, maybe we can go over there. I don't know how we got into this, but Kieran and I were like, well, let's just take over both space. We'll knock down some walls. All right. So we end up doing it. So we end up taking more space prematurely than what we wanted. Looking back at it, I don't even know how we made it work through financially, but it took a couple of years to finally get caught up to where we started using both spaces. Everything was better. Anyway, so we had to take on more space prematurely because if we went to the other side, we're just going to run into the same issue as the barbershop. People beside us are going to hate us, right? And I know some people are like, well, they should know they're going beside a CrossFit gym. Well, no, because if we're the ones pissing all the neighbors off, like it's our bad. Like we are right? It's like there's that, I forget what the clause is in all leases. They're like, basically, if you disrupt other businesses, you can be kicked out. Doesn't matter who's there first or who pays more rent, right?
Yeah.
And so, and like I had to learn about that the hard way too. So we ended up taking the more space on. So we bumped it up to about, I think 5,600 square feet before we were ready. So that was tough. And then just over time, we just slowly made things better, great, and going. Like I'm giving a long-winded answer here, but right
No,
when
it's good. It's a good story. I think people want to hear the story because they're never smooth.
no, it's never smooth, and that's why like 10 years, like oh my god. Then looking back at it is like no, like I like that's probably aged me dealing with all that stuff, right? And this
Yeah.
is back at the time where like my like ideas of like, hey, this is how I run a gym. It was a little bit different than it is now, and we can get in that after, right? And so we have both units, so two units, and it's like a half wall separating them. One side we weren't using enough, like the old side, and that was kind of like the transfer area where one class is coming, one class is going, people kind of hang out there. It was kind of like the social part. We were never using it. There's a lot of dead space there, so we decided like, hey, this is what we're going to do. Either we need to find a new location. This is like I think 2019. At the start of 2019, we're like either we're almost hitting a point where we're outgrowing this spot, so we either need to find a new spot. We started going out there looking, and all that fell through. Luckily, it did because like
When COVID showed up.
Yeah, but well, hold on, I'm not there yet. So, and which is part of the reason why so glad we did not get into a new space because of COVID. But because we were actually about to find a spot that was like 12,000 square feet, right? Anyways, we remodeled the one side, bought like new turf, new equipment, all this, spent a lot of money, had to get a loan out. We got the loan probably back like in 2019, say like in August or something to help front all this, right? Then of course, you already said it, COVID kicked in, 2020, what was it? February? Yeah, it was February.
Yeah.
No, March, when the world, I always say when the world.
Yeah, it really shut down March 13th.
Yeah. And basically that's what happened there. And so at that time, like we had this whole business plan. On one side's running like our regular classes, the other side we have these sports teams, right? Because we got this turf, we got equipment, everything's going, it's going to help pay. Then COVID hit. Basically, I won't even like obviously everyone knows what happened there. And like that was a very scary moment because again, right when I thought things were going well, boom, explosion. Everything. That was probably those were some very dark days in there too. Just because like, how are we even going to pay mortgage? Because my wife, Tara, she works in the restaurant industry. So both our jobs are like, we're screwed right now. Luckily, things got a little bit better with COVID. Like when I say better, like government started releasing all the plans. And like, we're so thankful for all that. And then since then, we've just been kind of chipping away, growing. When I say growing, like, getting back to what we were before, but then better, like better systems, better flows, better, just overall running better as a business versus in like the first 5 years, it was more like passion projects where it's like, yeah, it's my full-time job. I was running kind of a passion project, right? Now it's like, okay, this is a legit business where this is how we need to set it up. This is, you even said to me, you got to make a business COVID proof. Kind of setting up. So if I get sick or if I want to go away, how can the business still operate without me there? Right. And that's why I mean, like we had to move away from it being a passion project to like, okay, this is how we're going to pay our employees. This is what we're going to offer them. Like I'm proud to say we offer our employees now, like full-time employees, like full benefits and stuff like that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's something that's always been on the back of my mind last few years, but to be able to offer that, like to kind of maneuver the business and like, that's a proud point for me and like do other things. So there's obviously been rough patches. There's been some great moments, some hard moments, like, but overall, that's based our creation story. So we're 10 years in, and like I said, who knows what the next 10 years will take on.
That's amazing. So it's interesting to hear, the transition from passion projects to thinking about it as a business, which I know you well enough to know you're also very passionate about the service you deliver and the product that you have. How many years, like into that 10 years, what was the transition point where you really started realizing you need to run this like a business?
Probably about 5 years ago, I would say that, because like there's other gyms in town here, right? And I think about 5 years ago, I was like, we have to change things because I was like, what is our identity, right? And there's other gyms in town, and like we had to make ourselves separate from them. Not like, hey, we're so much better, but it's like, how if someone looks at all these different gyms, like how are we going to stand out to them? So like, what is our demographic? What is our avatar member, right? And so I had to start writing all this down. And then like someone who was into me is like, what is your like mission statement, your values? And I was like, oh, sorry for swearing, but
No, it's all good here. We're safe
yeah,
space.
yeah. So I was like, shit, like we have to, like I got to do this. So it wasn't until like 2017, 2018 that like, okay, this is what we need to do better. This is what I like. I have to start creating this. So I started coaching a little bit less, started hiring other coaches in the beginning, which is hard to do. And I think anybody has a problem with this. I heard this on a couple other podcasts you've done too. And like, you can tell other people are like, I'm the man of many hats. So I got to do multiple things. But like, if you want to work on your business versus work for your business, right? You need to start outsourcing. You need to start delegating. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start paying someone else to do a little bit more. And I'm going to take a step back so I can start working on this project over here. It took me a little bit to kind of not just let the trust go to other, like I did trust other people, but like to allow them to be like, okay, this is what you guys are going to do. I'm going to start working on this, right? Because you grow something. It's like your baby. Like it's like your kids. First time your kids are going over to a sleepover, right? And
Yeah.
like you relax. Okay, they can do it. You got to give them the empowerment, right? And so, but yeah, I would say it's about 5 years ago where I started moving towards like this is the system, right? Like Tara and I, we want to take like a week off. Like how can we do it? Because before it was always like, no, I gotta be there like every day. I gotta work. I gotta answer every email. It's like, no, I gotta start changing things.
That's great. I've known you for a long time. I'm happy that you're getting to that place now. That's amazing. So, 10 years in, what do you still love about the business?
The challenge, right? And so now, like back then, the challenge was like, oh, how do I become a really better coach? Like progressions, technique. Now, I think the thing I'm enjoying most about it is the challenge on the business side and trying to get the other coaches, like teach them like what I'm learning, be like, hey, this is how we're going to do these things, right? So that's what I love about the business. That's probably my favorite thing. And then the other part is when, even though it is super tiring dealing with people, like you're always like, because you always got to be 100% on. You can't like have a bad day and like, well, I'm just going to kind of like, no, some days you're just like, you do like a minimal job. Right.
Yeah. Some people like in office jobs, they can every once in a while mail it in for a day. And
yeah, and like kind of hide and kind of like, but like you can't do that while coaching, right? And one thing I had to learn was like when people come into the gym, they choose to come in, they're excited. So I think that's the other part. Like people are excited to still come in. So excuse me. So the energy that they bring, so they're having fun, right? And so that's the other part is that like some days I'm like, man, I'm just joking around, laughing with people, telling them how to move better. And like that part is also better too. I know it sounds kind of hokey, but like that is also the fun part too, where you still go in and you can have fun with working. I probably still make the same jokes I was making 10 years ago while coaching a class. Sorry.
I probably heard them all.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't good back then.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm the only one still laughing. I don't know why. But no, I think those are my two favorite things. It's like the working with people that are excited to come in and learn and get better. And then like the business side of it. Those are my favorite things.
Okay. Amazing. So adversely to that, if you could wave a magic wand and never have to do certain tasks, what areas of the business would they be in?
Probably doing the finances, like the accounting side of I forgot to mention Kira was my business partner. Business was getting to a point where she was like, yeah, I'm no longer needed. So I bought her out, but it was never bad because now she's the accountant for the business. A lot of people are like, oh, you don't have a business partner? No, everything is all good. I still talk to her all the time. We still have laughs and stuff like that. So she does the books, but I still have to provide her some information, all those things. I will say the accounting side is not the fun side. I'm just not good with numbers, like doing all like the equations and retention. Like those are things that if I could not do, that'll be it.
Yeah, you're not alone there. There are few entrepreneurs, unless they own their own accounting firm, that like the financial side. And I'll
Yeah,
tell you, I think most accountants don't even like the financial side of their own business.
exactly. Well, like when I bought Kira out, she did all of it. She was 100% in doing all of it. And like even like the banking statements and all that. When I bought her out, I think it was a great business move for me because then all of a sudden I had to do some of it versus just relying on her. Because now I got to send her into stuff like, here's payroll. And then she's like, okay, this is how much you want to owe for me, taxes and things like that. I was able to start learning. It's like, oh man, like we need to put more money aside for taxes this quarter. Like it forced me to learn more about the ins and outs of the business versus like, hey, coaches, members, and things like that. It's like there's more on the admin side. So in the end, it was the best thing for me to learn all that stuff. And I think like it's still good for me to learn that stuff, but obviously, if you can pass on it, I'm always going to do it. But it's good that everyone knows what's happening on that side. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. So I'm curious. Actually, before I ask this question, do you how do you guys identify in your gym when it comes to CrossFit? Yes, CrossFit, or no cross, or no, or sort of. I just want to make that distinction.
Like, are we across the gym or like, is that where
Yeah.
you're at? Yeah, like, because I know there was that during COVID, there was that breakup with CrossFit got really bad rap, but CrossFit had a bad rap before that. I'm going to give you the long-winded answer, sorry, but
That's all right. This is the tea session now, I guess.
yeah. So always before our biggest struggle was CrossFit can have a bad rap because some people are like, that's too hardcore. That's not for me. Like we get it all the time still is that people will say like, I'm not fit enough to go to a CrossFit gym. I'm always like, that's bullshit. That's like me saying I'm not flexible enough to go to a yoga class. So we're battling that even before COVID. All that. And like I was trying to get a whole bunch of hockey teams come in. They're like, well, we want hockey specific training. We don't want CrossFit. I'm like, at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same, right? Like strength training, and all that stuff, it's going to be the same. Whether the CrossFit just has a little bit different spin onto it. So when COVID hit, the owner did some moves like that did not look good on the affiliates, and so we dropped their name. But that was always in the back of our mind, like, is it really worth having CrossFit as on our like as our title, right? Like we are CrossFit Limestone, right? And like a little side note, we were always considered Limestone Athletics, unlike from our banking and like any business, like going to our charter accountant, like here's our business name, Limestone Athletics, here's our registered CRA, Limestone Athletics. And so we just dropped it. We're like, yeah, we're not CrossFit anymore. A couple months later on, when people are like, yeah, like we get a new member coming in, they're like, hey, tell me about your gym. We're like, well, have you heard of CrossFit? And they're like, yes. Okay, well, we're not CrossFit, but we do everything that's CrossFit. And we kept explaining like that. And like, to me, that's like the dumbest way to explain something. It's like, why don't we just say what we are? We are a CrossFit gym. We do CrossFit type programming. And so we still have the name CrossFit. And this is also CrossFit headquarters. They did some moves to make things better for the affiliates and got rid of like the bad people and things like that. And so it's kind of long-winded answer. Yes, we are CrossFit. But like we still call ourselves Limestone Athletics.
Okay. Yeah, I like the move. No, I think I was watching it all kind of from the sidelines, and it all made sense to me. So that kind of teed up the question I really wanted to ask is, where do you see the next evolution in the CrossFit world or Limestone Athletics, and how do those relate?
Like where the business is going to go, like as a gym, or like where the whole fitness industry in general.
You pick.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you? Yeah, you pick. Those are both great questions. Thanks for asking them to yourself.
I know. All right. So I will say this, like with CrossFit, like I think the big thing is going to be building on there's the CrossFit Games, right? The sport of fitness, and whether you're for it or against it, like there's always going to be the aspect part of CrossFit. I think that's where the CrossFit brand will go, they're going to push a lot of that, but their focus is going to be on trying to get the more average person coming in versus this is a high-end competition. Only the best can do this. And it's like made for like 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, even though older people always did it, but that's kind of like the general look it had, right? I think they're going to be going like, this is more of a celebration of fitness. Anyone can do this. And that's where I see our gym going, is that like CrossFit's inclusive. Anyone can do it, right? Might not be for everyone. I'll be the first to admit that. Not everyone's into strength training. They rather do like long cardio things. That's cool. Like we like our strength training. We also like our cardio. Like we're trying to be good at everything, not like really good at one thing, right? And I can see that's where the brand's going to go. Like the brand of like my business and the brand of CrossFit is like very inclusive. Anyone can do this. It's a celebration of fitness.
Yeah. Awesome. And how about just the fitness industry in general? Like it's an industry that has evolved as much or more than any other industry. You know, if you look at, every 10 years or so, it looks quite different.
Yeah.
What do you think's coming down the pipe?
I would say it looks different, but everything circles back. Because for a while there, it was all like functional fitness. This is what functional fitness, and do this and do that, like high intensity training, HIIT training, and bodybuilding's bad, and don't work out like that, right? Everything's going back towards bodybuilding again. I'll say that. And so I can see that's kind of the next thing, is like combining like functional training. Well, what's functional training? Like doing full body movements or things like that can transfer to other sports or things like that. But it's going to be more in a bodybuilding sense. Like back in the 70s, weightlifting was huge, right? Even 60s, like everyone did strength training, right? And then like in the 80s came around, became bodybuilding. And then 90s was like a little bit more endurance training, kind of transfer into some of that to all these like new fad programs. CrossFit came out in the 2000s and like HIIT training, kettlebell training, all that stuff. And bodybuilding was considered bad. Weightlifting, like the sport of weightlifting, like the snatch and clean and jerk was very popular. And now, and like cardio, like doing long endurance training, like running and things like that was like not the best for you. I think it's circling back that like, it's becoming more inclusive in this, shouldn't use inclusive. It's starting to use like everything's good, right?
Okay.
Accepting the difference. Because before there was a while where like endurance athletes were like, shouldn't strength train because it's going to dampen your performance and your endurance, right? And then strength training was like, that's going to dampen your, and then I think everything's being included now. Like it's good to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I prescribe to that for sure. And it's what's interesting now, and I don't know how you see this as things evolve, but there seems to be more and more research to support decision-making around fitness and nutrition that's available. And that goes beyond the status quo. Like nutrition's a great example of that. Like what we once knew about the only way to eat is no longer true. And the same goes for working out. So I think, YouTube's certainly done this, right? You see all the YouTube experts, obviously we take that with a grain of salt. Some of them absolutely are experts and some of them, are maybe reckless with what they're saying, and then everything in between. But there's lots of ways to learn about how to work out differently, and whether it's how to have the right nutrition to support you as an individual, the types of workouts that you can layer on, and fitness that you can layer on to kind of be that complete human around, cardio, strength training, functional movement, but even what that does for you, like strength, like building strong tissue around strength training and how that's going to help as you age. Like all this stuff starting to come out. And then we're seeing this whole thing around heat and cold exposure, which, obviously, I'm a big part of that world now, but and how that can help your overall health. And then we're seeing meditation and yoga. And so to your point, there's no one size fits all anymore.
No.
And there's all the research to make people feel confident that they're making the best decision for themselves versus just following the crowd.
Exactly. And I think like there's more options of concurrent training or hybrid programs, and see like how before it was like only do yoga. Now it's like, well, this, if you do running, this is the type of yoga you should do. Or if you do strength training like powerlifting, this is the type of yoga. And so now people are starting to work more together versus like always before, like different, you have different schools of thought. Now they're all starting to blend together, and it's going to start working with more nutrition, because like there's like so many different types of nutrition. Like, I don't want to say fads, but like so many different things, from carnivore, vegan, to carb loading, to macro, count your macros and things like that. That now it's like you have to pick the thing that works best for you.
Yeah.
Same with,
And it's also best for you for now, right?
exactly. And like say with hot cold therapy and stuff like that, some people are like, I'll never do that. Some people are like if it works for them, great. Because like some people might not have time to add another element to their health, right? And like,
Mhm.
hey, just work on like 3 days a week, right? I think it's getting more accepting to find the best thing that works for the individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious. There's this stat out there that people throw out all the time, and I want to hear your thought around it. And you don't have to come at it from a scientific background because I didn't prep you with this question. But the notion is that nutrition is 80% of it, and I have my own thoughts about that, but I'm curious about yours.
Yeah, it's like hard to say it's 80% of it. Like if you eat like shit, you're going to train like shit, and then therefore you're not going to put as much effort into the gym, and then you're also not going to recover as well. Like to me, it's like it's a triangle. Recovery is 1 point, right? Recovery is like cold immersion, sleep, meditation, recovery days like rest. Next point is your training, actual programming of how you train. Doesn't all have to be strength. It doesn't all have to be cardio. It can be a blend, whatever. And then the third point is nutrition. Like if you kind of work on all three of those things, everything's going to be all right. But if you're neglecting one of them, yeah, it's not going to fall. But like, I think it
I,
all depends
I
on the
love that
person.
answer.
Well, yeah, it depends on the person, because some people eat so well, but they're like, I'm not seeing results, right? Well, they think they're eating really well, but like, yeah, you might have some gaps there. You just got to find those gaps. And is it any points of those things, right? Like, and so 80% of it, I don't know. Like they always say, you build your abs in the kitchen. Yes, if you want to lose fat, you do have to clean up your diet, right? You can't out train a shitty diet. I'll tell you that. But you also need to work, like do training, like workouts and stuff like that. You can't just be 100% how you eat, right? But also it depends on your life goals. If you're like, hey, I just love going for hikes, okay, that's perfect. If some other people are like, I want to look absolutely chiseled, like a Greek god with my shirt off and stuff like that, then yeah, you are going to have to train extra hard, and you are going to have to eat well, and you're going to have to get all three of those points in check.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I loved your analogy of the triangle because I think about that question a lot just for myself as well. And I always kind of reference it that it's multifactorial. It's not just 80% because it's not about nutrition and just training. It's also, like you said, the recovery days and stretching and meditation and maybe some hot and cold exposure and things just to get you mentally clear as well, and your body, being able to move. So I love the way you put it in a triangle, and it almost feels like the nutrition and the training take a lot of mental effort.
Yeah.
But if you can work on the other part of the triangle that you mentioned first, which is the mental side of it more and kind of body preparation. So if you're stretching, you probably feel like going to the gym might feel a little easier because you're not waking up as stiff. I think if we put a lot of effort into that one side of the triangle, the other two might happen a lot with a little less friction.
Exactly. And like, I think a lot of people say, like, maybe they say 80% nutrition because it's the easiest way or the simplest way to kind of clean up it's the one thing that you can have the most control over. In the sense, you're the one putting food in your mouth. You might not have time to go to the gym. And if you got a couple of toddlers, you're not going to sleep well. But you can always control how you eat. And so I think maybe that's why they say that. I don't know. But you do have to work out all three parts. In my opinion, I think you have to work on the recovery side first. That should be the first thing to work on. And then you start working on the other parts depending on the person. But because if you don't have your recovery in check, like the other parts are not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lived that for sure over the years. Not so much now, but definitely used to just not work on the recovery or the mental side of it. I'd go work out as hard as I could, lift as much weight as I could. I love those front squats, and
Yeah.
then go eat pizza and a beer.
Yeah, well, like, because you think like, oh, I earned it, I can eat like trash and we'll like drink with the boys and stuff like that. But you learn the hard way. And I think everyone learns the hard way. And like, I think as you get older, like I'm doing this, and I know you're doing this. People are like, I'm spending more time on meditating. Like that's a huge component that I'm doing nowadays is meditating. Um, and like people are like, well, I'm getting to more into the stretching part, which is like going back to the recovery. I think you kind of learn the hard way is that more is not better in terms of training, and you can out train a bad diet, like eat like crap. People as they get older, they start to realize I go and work on this part too, on the recovery aspect. Because again, like there's so many parts in that people need to work on. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I don't know why, but no one likes to stretch,
No,
right?
no.
I don't know why. I don't like it either. And I don't even know why, because I feel great when I do it.
I know, like, but during, I'm like, oh, I go stretch, like, oh, I only got 15 minutes, like, oh, I guess I gotta go stretch, but like, I don't know, they're like, everyone kind of hates it, but everyone can have time to do stretching. You do feel better, but it's like, well, I guess because there's nothing like you see right then, right? There's nothing sexy
Yeah.
about
Well, and when you think about how we go through our days now, whether it's at work or at play or while we're working out or on these devices, we're getting dopamine hits all day long, and
it.
stretching does not deliver one.
No,
Yeah, that's maybe it. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody that can break that down a lot better than you, the way you and I just did. But
there's some smart people who can explain more, but yeah, for now, stretching is just not as fun.
awesome. Well, it's been great having you. Before we jump off, I do obviously I want to say thank you very much, but I want to ask you one last question. Are there any books or like YouTube personalities that you really like to read or watch for your kind of health business journey?
Yeah, there's a few. Um, like right now, I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday, which is like the Daily Stoic.
Yeah,
That's on. Is that directly on business? No, but does carry over in the mindset part and learning how to do all that stuff.
it's definitely part of business because
Yeah,
of that.
yeah, exactly. And to me, like it's putting time aside so mentally I can work on myself, and so I can bring it to my business. Right, that'll be the one big thing. On the business side, there's some people I follow. Like there's Stuart Bauer I follow. He can be kind of controversial. I know some people are not big on him because he has a very blunt way of putting things.
Yeah.
But that's why I kind of like it. He's like, this is what you need to do to work on your business, right? Um, and then there's obviously Cooper. What's his name? First name. Um, Two Brain
Oh yeah.
Business. Yeah. So everyone kind of knows. There's all that stuff, and like there's even Tim Dupuis, who's one of the owners of Crossfit Performance, which is one of the top strength gyms in the United States. He talks a lot about business. So all depends on like what you want to work on and how they deliver the message. Because all three of those people deliver the message in very different ways. And depends on how you react to it. Because like there's Ben Bergeron, he talks about business all the time. I'm not big on how he delivers it, but I'm not saying he's wrong. I just don't like, yeah, okay, sure. It doesn't resonate with me as well. So those are the people I go after or follow all the time. In the actual health way, I go through phases of some people I follow more than like, I don't know. That one's kind of harder because there's a lot in there that I can't really give the exact, like it all depends on like time of year. Some people like, depends on what I'm looking for in my own programming.
Yeah, there's a lot of content in the health world out there.
So
Endless.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks so much for being on the show. I love the conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Where do you want people to find you online?
Limestone Athletics are that's our website, limestoneathletics.com. Just look up Limestone Athletics on Facebook, Instagram. I can't remember his exact handle. It's like limestone athletics for Instagram. It's something like that. But if you just search it, you'll be able to see us. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
I'll add it to the show notes so everybody can find it easily.
awesome. No, thank you so much for having me on here, Ben. It's been awesome.
Thank you for not only joining us today on the Core Health Collective show, but also thank you for being an entrepreneur looking to make the world a better place.